want to give up taste. And they didn't with new Pepsi Free. Leave it to Pepsi to make caffeine-free cola taste this terrific. Pepsi Free. There's regular and sugar-free with 1 calorie. I knew they'd like it.
The taste is positively Pepsi and it's caffeine-free. Positively Pepsi-free. Pepsi-free. BCTV. Our best dish show.
It was a real shock to many ordinary people in British Columbia, good morning, to find that there is a group called the Wimmins Fire Brigade, active in British Columbia, quite prepared to and have firebombed 3 red-hot video stores. Comes as a real shock. And as a matter of fact, the BC Federation of Women, 36 women's lib groups in that organization, have made their own decision to close red-hot video outlets within a year, according to their press release. And while they did not participate in the firebombing of November the 22nd, these groups within the BC Fed of Women, according to their press release, are in agreement with the frustration and anger of the women who did. Now that's quite a tough attitude indeed. And many ordinary people can't see the sense, the decency, or anything else about these pornographic, near pornographic, or totally pornographic, brutal tapes which are apparently in circulation in British Columbia. And I think everyone, not only in my generation, despises the denigration of women, children, and men in what most of us regard as absolute filth. However, it's my duty to let you know what some women think of the pornography situation in British Columbia. And to that end, I interviewed a number of women the other day. Here, first of all, is a summary of their attitude towards the fire bombings.
The frustration that has led the Women's Fire Brigade to act in the way that they did is a frustration that is shared by all women.
Is it an admirable way in which to act?
I think that that's not the issue.
Just a minute. That's not the issue. Is it an admirable way for the Women's Fire Brigade?
I don't want to comment on it.
What do you say? No comment. How about you?
No comment.
How about you?
No comment.
How about you? You said something already. Repeat it again on microphone. You said it was an effective way to act.
The point is that the media has paid attention to this when they did not pay attention to serious, long-term hard work by women's groups and by individual women.
Why am I here today?
That's right, and that's your responsibility, not mine.
Might even be my duty.
And the mistake that you're making is equating the kind of violence against property with the kind of death and torture of women that pornography shows, encourages, and perpetuates. It's absolutely wrong.
So it is a good way to act.
I'm not saying that. You're saying that.
No, I'm asking you a question. A very simple question.
No comment.
You can say yes without implicating yourself.
It worked, didn't it?
She said yes without implicating herself. How about you?
It would not be a tactic I would have chosen.
And you, Jack?
No, nor I. Nor I at all.
And you?
Nor I.
I see. And you already got the answer. And you, I forgot.
Nor I.
All right. The full interviews with the women, unedited, of course, as is my wont, after the break.
I want men to stop buying this stuff, to stop making it, to stop producing it, to stop making profits off our bodies.
Terrorism belongs somewhere else, like it belongs in the Middle East, belongs in Beirut, belongs in Vancouver Island when somebody blows up power stations, belongs in Lytton Industries in Toronto's. But recently, we've had a frightening little sample of a milder form of terrorism in the destruction of at least one red-hot video porn shop. And I have in my hand a release from a mystery organization so far called the Wimmins Fire Brigade. who claim responsibility for the firebombing of 3 red-hot video outlets in the lower mainland of British Columbia. And believe it or believe it not, there are some sentences in this with which no reasonable person can disagree. This kind of business promotes and profits from violence against women and children. Pornographic cassettes. It's a multi-million-dollar pornographic industry all across the country. That these people say, not these people, the Women's Brigade says, teaches men to equate sexuality with violence. And they say to the Fire Brigade that the justice system has failed, it protects rich men's profits and property, and we, the Women's Fire Brigade, therefore have no viable alternative but to burn these places down. Now, I've asked a number of women who represent women's groups to meet me here in the top floor of one of the busiest places in town, the Carnegie Centre at Main and Hastings. And I'm going to talk to these women, and I want them to make their case, although it's not a difficult case to make, as long as no violence is involved against pornography. First to Lee Lakeman. Lee, do you know any of the women involved in this terrorism business and burning down these stores?
No, but I can probably name you a lot of the men involved in the terrorism that's inside the stores.
You mean the owners of the Red Hot Video?
Yes, the owners and the
Who
makers
else,
of the
for
films.
instance?
The makers of the films. And the men who buy it have to share some responsibility too.
Women never buy these things.
No, well, rarely. And Alan Williams certainly has to take some responsibility for allowing it to go on.
Has the system really failed completely?
Absolutely. The stores still exist. There are more than there were a year ago, and women are increasingly terrified.
Do you endorse these violent ways of putting Red Hot Video out of business?
I don't think that's the question. I don't endorse the terrorism and the violence that's inside the stores.
No, that is the question. Did you endorse the violence that's outside the stores? No.
I won't answer the question. I think the important question is, what are we going to do to stop these stores and to stop the people who buy the material and to stop the people who are profiting from the material?
Oh, we can't. I mean, I'm totally against pornography in any form, and I've been against the permissive society in which many women's groups appear to have taken part. But I can't support this kind of thing. Can you?
To support which?
Burning the places down.
Well, I'm not sad about it. I think that it's unfortunate that women have been left in a corner when that's the only kind of activity they've got left that works. Here we are on television, here we are getting attention now. And it's unfortunate that the government and the media has left it until now to react.
I must admit, if it hadn't been the burning down of these places, I don't suppose I'd ever have been down here taking pictures.
That's right.
Of you and your protesting. Now I want to speak to Jancis Andrews. Jancis. Lee, by the way, is from the Vancouver Rape Relief and the BC Federation of Women. Isn't that right?
That's right.
Now I want to speak to Jancis Andrews. Now, be specific. In what way has the system of justice, when I read this disgusting book here, the X-rated movie handbook.
You're right, it is disgusting.
Where did you get that book?
This was bought from the main store of Red Hot Video down on Main Street.
Well, it's a filthy book.
It is.
By my standards.
And by many people's standards. There's actually a protest being lodged right now, a formal protest with Mark McGuigan, the Justice Minister. It has been forwarded by the North Shore Women's Centre, but also by the National Action Committee for the Status of Women, President Doris Anderson.
Now, when you say Mark McGuigan, what's the point of protesting anything to Mark McGuigan of all people?
The reason why we have protested this magazine is because, in our opinion, it is an obscene magazine. It contravenes Section 159, subsection 8 of the Criminal Code.
Got through customs.
It got through customs in Toronto, and a protest has been sent there. It did not get through customs here. In the opinion of Mr. Jack Pedler, who's the regional manager here, it is a prohibited magazine. There's a great deal of controversy about this magazine. It shows on page 39 a naked woman being gang raped by 3 men. This is explicit sex with cruelty and violence. There is also another photograph on page 50 showing a naked woman chained to a cartwheel with her face and neck in a dog muzzle. So we feel we're on very strong ground in protesting this magazine, particularly since it directs its customers to rape and gang rape and incest films, and no civilized society should condone such
Matter of fact, the only thing that might protect this book is what many people wanted in this country, the Charter of Rights. This is an infringement on the unlimited freedom of speech which exists in the United States, for instance.
There is an approach being made right now to the Human Rights Commission to have literature such as this and films such as those put out by Red Hot Video and other hardcore stores declared a form of hate propaganda, in that it fosters a derogatory and contemptuous attitude to women specifically.
And to men.
And to men indeed, but in a much smaller degree, I would say perhaps as little as 2%.
In terms of the action in these porno cassettes.
Right.
Now, I want to talk about the Attorney General's failure to act. Who's the best person here to talk to?
It's possible.
We all know the stores are still open. He hasn't acted.
Yeah,
He made, you know, glorious statements on television about confiscating the material, and then we wouldn't have to fight so hard, and at least costing them financially. But it was hot air. He didn't do it.
What could he do it under?
I don't care what he does it under.
Yeah, but you've
Just
got to have
do
a
it.
law to do it.
Yeah, but it's not my job to figure out the law in order to protect myself. The laws are
You
written.
can't make a law that quickly to act.
There are existing laws. They're violating all kinds of things.
Here we are.
The Criminal Code, Section 159.
Your name again, please.
I am Karen Phillips from the Port Coquitlam Women's Center.
Right.
The Criminal Code, Section 159, is very explicit. Sex in any material, whether it is written, whether it is filmed, whether it is videotaped, that type of material that depicts sex with violence, sex with crime, sex with horror of any sort is considered obscene, and it is prohibited under Section 159 of the Criminal Code.
Well, let me be Alan Williams for a moment. The obscenity provisions of the Criminal Code do not contemplate the prosecution of material which has as its subject horror, cruelty, and violence alone. Is he not hamstrung by the fact that the exploitation of sex must be the main factor in it?
I don't think so. That is not what the criminal code. It is very. It says either undue exploitation of sex or sex with any of those three issues. And to say that those are vague terms is totally ridiculous. They're very. I mean, they're not even written in legalese. They're written in plain everyday English.
Marcy, where do you stand on this? You're from Port Coquitlam too, aren't you?
Yes.
Marcy Green.
Yes.
Right. Tell me where you stand on this.
Well, I belong to a committee called Women on Pornography in Port Coquitlam, and for the last 6 months, we have been writing letters, lobbying, and picketing. So my stand is against these pornography shops.
Do you have one of these places in Port Coquitlam?
Right across the street.
And what has happened to it so far?
They have removed some tapes, and the Crown Council is presently looking at them, and we're awaiting their decision.
Has it not been a fact that in some of these cases, and I'm going to speak now to Diane Coulomb of a committee against pornography, is it not a fact that some of these people have escaped potential prosecution by removing particularly horrible titles from their collections?
I haven't heard of that.
Now, what does your committee against pornography want done?
We want the Attorney General to take a stand on this, and we would like to see the stores disappear
Altogether?
altogether.
You would like to see them closed down?
Yes.
Now, who's had experience in handling any municipal council on the refusal of a license? Jancis? In North Vancouver, did the council just supinely give the license knowing what kind of place it was going to be?
They did not know what kind of a place it was going to be. When the application was put in, apparently it said X-rated movies, and therefore the license was given because other video stores in the area also sell X-rated movies. However, these are softcore porn, that is explicit sex without the violence.
Is that okay?
That is not okay by me. It was okay by the licensing officer, and he granted the license. And
I'm not trying to be funny. I'm just trying to find that, you know, there's lots of permissive sex shown in many other magazines to which you do not object. Is that not correct?
I don't object as much. I think it's important that people be able to see depictions of sexuality. I don't want the criminal code preventing me from having the literature that women worked very hard to make over the last 10 years to teach people, and including ourselves, about our bodies. What I object to is pictures of people being beaten up, hurt,
In other words,
degraded.
is it the implementation of the rape factor, the humiliation, and the most disgusting thing of all, not any more disgusting than the other, the torture of children that really makes you mad?
It's all of it as far as we're concerned. It's violence against women and children, and it's the area that many of these women's groups have been working on for several years, trying to eliminate the violence in our society against women. And this material is creating an environment that accepts that kind of violence, and it's blatant violence.
We want the Attorney General to take a stand on this, and we would like to see the stores disappear
Altogether.
altogether.
I'd like your name. May I have your name?
Ann Daskell.
Ann Daskell, does this kind of, will accept that they're filthy films, that they torture, sadism, brutality, the lot. Does this, you think, teach a generation of men specifically to become violent rapists? This I find kind of hard to believe.
I believe it's absolutely true. I find it's ludicrous that when we talk about media, we admit that advertising affects people. We admit that movies affect style and the way people buy things and the way they see the world and the way they dress, but then we're supposed to buy the line that this kind of violent literature and violence against women doesn't affect us. It affects everyone who sees it. It affects how men see women specifically.
That really makes you, not trying to be smart aleck I want, it makes you a little bit of a Puritan group, which I don't object to. Hey?
No.
Yes, it does.
Anti-violent. It's anti-violent.
You're not Puritans.
No,
You're
not
for
at all.
sexual liberation and sexual equality.
Right.
Mr. Webster.
Is that right?
I'm for sex between people who are involved with each other in a way that they want to be, with no coercion, no violence, no feeling of subjugation and power. I think that...
And no pornographic cassettes?
And no pornographic consent, nothing involving the exploitation of children or anybody.
But you don't go along with me when I say certainly it's disgusting, certainly it's horrible, certainly it must be stopped legally, without violence. Do you agree with me?
I don't feel that it's the issue that I want to talk about right now. I want to talk about ending violence against women.
But doesn't it give the women...
We've been working in many ways legally for several years to be doing this. Women have been working on this hard.
Agreed.
And it's important that the public picks up on the issue and takes action and gives us support.
But ladies, doesn't this kind of thing, and none of you is involved in it, none of you knows about the Wimmins Fire Brigade, but doesn't this lose and ruin many years of good work in that you'll all be pushed aside as a bunch of terrorist nits?
We were pushed aside as nits in the beginning. We were told we were idiotic, crazy, making it up, prudes, all kinds of stuff right from year one. These women haven't made that any worse. And it's not these women who were calling us that. It's the fact that the world has not responded to what we said in the first wave that means they're stuck with something like blowing up a building.
Why did the city council, is it District in North Vancouver, issue a license at all?
Because I honestly do not believe that they were aware of the kind of films that they were being put out. They were assured that they were explicit sex, but that was all. And they didn't bother to investigate further, and indeed, why should they? They took that for granted. This is Mayor Jack Laux. He's a family man, and he is concerned, and Mayor Jack Laux actually took our concern to the Union of BC Municipalities and put forward a motion, Resolution B48, asking the AG to broaden the law, to tighten the law, and to act. And this was passed unanimously.
Now to Regina Lorick of the Vancouver Rape Relief. Would you not agree, however, that under the criminal code, Alan Williams is kind of hamstrung by it unless he wants to take arbitrary action not fully within the law?
No, I wouldn't agree at all. I think he has a responsibility to act here, to enforce his own laws, to protect us. We're half the population.
Well, there are a couple of actions that could be taken. The customs action could be taken, couldn't it? The importation of that book itself.
That's one thing. That's his job. My job is protecting women, taking care of women.
Now, these particularly filthy cassettes that come in, do they come in huge caseload lots, or are they copied and smuggled and copied?
I have no idea. I don't
can
operate
tell
in
me?
this industry.
I don't think anyone here can tell you that.
BCTV reporter last night had on television where some of them are copied.
They said that they were smuggled into this country one at a time and copied, and the Americans have no claim on the copyright, and therefore it's a big money-making business. Yeah.
What we originally heard on the North Shore via our newspaper, the North Shore News, is that at that time, the store Red Hot Video was inviting people in the community who had smuggled hardcore porn movies over the border to come to them. They would then take a copy and it was claimed that because a copy had been taken of the original film, there was no law to cover the copy. This is not so.
Woman from the press gang. Press gang? What's a press gang?
Press Gang, it's a feminist printing and publishing collective.
Paula Clancy.
Yeah.
Don't you feel there's a little bit, if you ignore the torture, violence for the moment, if you can, a little bit, what are you laughing at? Don't you feel there's a little bit of hypocrisy in that, really what you are is a real Puritan, close down everything group, aren't you?
Well, I'm glad that you brought that up again, because you keep saying this filthy material.
Oh yeah, I agree,
you know?
it's filthy.
Well, I don't agree. I mean, that's one way you can call it, but what I prefer to call it and make it very clear that we're not talking about dirty sex. We're talking about violence in the most extreme form against women. And that is what we are protesting. And, you know, you can put us aside by saying that we're puritanical or that we're, you know, trying to censor freedom of the press, freedom of this and that. We are not talking about censorship. We are talking about eliminating the violence against women in every aspect that we encounter that, and the stuff that's going on at Red Hot Video is one more example of that.
Well, one little small question I must ask you. You don't approve of the Wimmins Fire Brigade way of doing it, do you?
Come on. Yeah.
Well, no, what do you mean, come on?
That is not the point. I think what the Wimmins Fire Brigade is an example of another tactic that has been used, and it is something like it's been said, women have said already, that we have been fighting for years and years and years against the violence that is perpetrated against women.
Well, don't you think for your own... Sorry.
And I think that the frustration that has led the Wimmins Fire Brigade to act in the way that they did is a frustration that is shared by all women.
Is it an admirable way in which to act?
I think that that's not the issue.
Just a minute. That's not the issue. Is it an admirable way for the Women's Fire Brigade? What do you say? What do you say? No comment. How about you?
No comment.
How about you?
No comment.
How about you? You said something already. Repeat it again on microphone. You said it was an effective way to act.
The point is that the media has paid attention to this when they did not pay attention to serious, long-term hard work by women's groups and by individual women.
Why am I here today?
That's right, and that's your responsibility, not mine.
Might even be my duty.
The mistake that you're making is equating the kind of violence against property with the kind of death and torture of women that pornography shows, encourages, and perpetuates. It's absolutely wrong.
So it is a good way to act.
I'm not saying that. You're saying that.
No, I'm asking you a question. Perfectly simple question.
No comment.
You can say yes without implicating yourself.
It worked, didn't it?
She said yes without implicating herself. How about you?
It would not be a tactic I would have chosen.
And you, James?
No, nor I. Nor I at all.
And you?
Nor I.
Marcy? And you already got the answer. And you, I forgot.
Nor I.
All right. Okay, just about finished. Who wants a last word? Anybody can have a last word. Who wants a last word? Okay, I'll go right round the house, starting with Lee Lakeman.
I want women who are angry about this, as I suspect most women in BC are, to plan actions themselves and to call us...
What kind of actions?
Plan actions that they think are going to work within their politics. That's what's important. And I want them to call Rape Relief at 872-8212 if they're trying to find other women who are also angry and trying to act.
You'll coordinate the action.
Well, we'll put them in touch with other people.
I said a last word, not a last 10 minutes.
I want violence against women to be stopped, and I want the kind of perpetration of that violence to be also stopped. I want the whole pornography industry stopped, and I want Red Hot Video closed.
This year. I think I want to make one point of information for people is that I think some people think that the tapes at Red Hot Video are subject to the film classification regulations that are applied to films. They are not. They are distributed totally at liberty. The people who are running the businesses are supposed to be self-regulating. We've seen how much self-regulation they carry on.
Mind you, it proves what a sick society we are when people queue up to buy them. Hey?
Well, we aren't going to be queuing up. We're going to be queuing up outside.
They are not.
My last word? I think that in order to stop violence against women, we'll need the help from every member, every class and people, sex in the community.
Thank you. Press gang.
We have been fighting for reproductive rights, control of our body, in every aspect of our lives. Pornography is another front in which we fight for that. And
Anti-pornography.
anti-pornography. And my last statement today would be that that fight is going to continue, and we're going to do it for the rest of our lives. We are fighting, regardless.
Marcy?
Yes, Port Coquitlam Area Women's Centre will continue to fight against the violence of red hot video, and we'll continue to picket and lobby, and we invite the people in our community to join us.
Jancis?
North Shore Women's Centre will be continuing to work very strongly through legal means to have our laws upheld, and we appeal to all civic-minded groups in BC to join us to pressure Alan Williams to have our laws upheld.
Karen?
The same thing that that everyone has said, that it is very important that everyone realize that the tapes that Red Hot Video carries are not just sex. They are sex and violence.
Torture and humiliation.
And
Rennie?
all those things.
Regina.
Regina, sorry.
We've talked a lot about what women are doing and what women are fighting. I want to talk a little bit about the responsibility of men. I want men to stop buying this stuff, to stop making it, to stop producing it, to stop making profits off our bodies.
Does anybody know about any more action by the Women's Fire Brigade?
No, but it says on the bottom that they'll continue to defend themselves. I think what we're saying is that we all will, all in our own way.
Okay, thank you very much, women. Quite an experience, that, I'll tell you. Give you my little summary, and we'll go to the phones after the break. There isn't any doubt about it that both the customs prohibitions and the criminal code is not effective, it would seem, until there's some brand new test case, I should imagine, on section 159 of the criminal code. Now, you remember Alan Williams. By the way, I asked Mr. Williams if he could come on this morning, but he's in a cabinet meeting. Oh, and I also asked Red Hot Video and their lawyer if they could come on this morning, but they chose not to. Alan Williams came out with that statement, and I was talking to him yesterday about it, that they're going to bring in legislation at the spring session which will bring these video cassettes under what is in effect the film censorship laws of British Columbia. And that means that every video cassette would have to be passed by a censor and rated, I suppose, as they rate movies. Now, I didn't go and see Caligula, but I would probably regard it as a brutal, violent, horrible, pornographic effort which should be banned. That, however, has apparently been passed for some X-rated viewing, and as you know, it brought thousands of people, day after day, night after night. So what have we got? We've got a situation whereby the particular magazine that I was showing, what's it called, X-rated Movie Handbook, is stopped from entering the country on the West Coast, but allowed into the country, I think somebody told me, in the central of Canada. We would, it seem, have no desire by the authorities arbitrarily to take action. City councils, municipalities can refuse to issue licenses, and the way open then for anybody who wants to model or copy or expand this type of operation is to go to the courts and cause the city council, if the courts so think, to do their duty by issuing a specific license in a specific business. My attitude, of course, is quite clear. I think it always has been to anybody who's watched or listened to me at all. Totally abhor the violence by the so-called Women's Fire Brigade. It's quite disgusting. It's completely reprehensible and cannot be tolerated. I mean, that's as clear as the nose in your face. We don't want any Belfast-type situations here, regardless of what the cause is. Things that have to be corrected in this country have to be corrected by law. So in my opinion, no group should support the effects of the action by the Women's Fire Brigade. I can understand how many people are upset and think that good for them. You know, they've done what the law can't do. Get into that kind of thing, And you're back to the old Hitler book-burning capers of the 1930s, many of you probably don't even know about it. First move towards fascism is the arbitrary action by the mob and the authorities to stamp on other people's real or perceived rights. It's only 40 years since the last one. It's horrifying to my generation to think of the things that are happening around the world now in the name of real or perceived injustices. I'll go to the phones. Where'll I go? Go ahead, please.
Yeah, Jack?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you. In fact, I think it's disgusting that they are using violence to destroy this violence. Actually, is this province going to get, exactly as you were just saying, going to become another Belfast? I don't know. I mean, I protest against the higher ICBC rates. Am I going to go fill a car full of bombs and plant it outside a nearest ICBC office?
Well, it's drawing a long bow to make the parallel, but there is some kind of parallel there whatsoever. Now, I'm the first to agree that I think the authorities could take action which could be tested in the courts on this kind of thing.
Yes, that's right. You don't need women running around blowing up things, because that's just a precedent for our younger generation, too. If they object to something, just go ahead and blow it up, you know.
And I'm almost bound to tell you that under the Charter of Rights, with its rather easy-ozy attitude towards things, this could go on for years and years and years and years. Although there is, as you know, the escape clause in the Charter of Rights that judges are entitled to take into account when they make the decisions as to individual or specific freedoms or restrictions, the general community standard which is reasonable at that time. Anyway, you're with me, I gather?
Yes, that's right, Jack.
Okie dokie.
Thank you.
Must say in all fairness, however, that these women I interviewed this morning got on Webster's television program all around the province, which otherwise they probably wouldn't have done, because I don't like tackling these subjects at the best of times. Now, where am I? Go ahead, please.
Hello, Jack.
Yes.
Yeah, pornography has been going on since the year one, and no one's forcing anyone to go into these stores and buy these tapes. Now, if these women go around burning these stores, where will they stop? What would have happened if somebody had been burned to death in one of those stores? Would the story have been different today, or would they have accepted responsibility or been quiet about it? Also, by looking at these women you interviewed this morning, it seems to me that there's a little bit of sexual frustration there, if you don't mind me saying.
Well, I don't think that's really a fair comment, to be quite honest. I'm inclined to think that there are restrictions on the freedom of an individual in a democracy, and they can be reasonable restrictions in accordance with community standards, providing it's done legal and above board and tested in the proper court of law. Go ahead, please.
Yes, Jack. I totally agree with the women this morning on your show. I feel that for years and years, women have been speaking out against pornography that has been in our corner grocery stores, the books, and so on, and nobody has listened. And I feel that if Parliament, the men in Parliament, would start listening to women, maybe our society wouldn't be the shape it's in now.
But do you approve of the actions by this unidentified group, the Wimmins Fire Brigade?
I wouldn't say that I approve of it, no, not in the way that it was done, by blowing up the stores. However, as I say, had we been listened to, and if they would listen to the women, this would not have occurred.
Well, I've nagged on and on and on and on about gutlessness of the Liberals in Ottawa, and nothing ever changes. The Federal Criminal Code really has to be toughened up if you want arbitrary action. It must be toughened up. The Attorney General's Department could have brought in the censorship or the previewing and categorization of these tapes at the last session of the legislature. Now it's going to come in the next session of the legislature.
Right. Did you also know that some of these tapes, I don't know which kind, but I've heard that some are being sold in corner grocery stores?
No, I don't know that, my dear.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Go ahead, please.
Oh,
Where are the women this morning? Go ahead.
Hello. I'm concerned with the fact that these women seem to back up the violence against these stores, and if they're going to back up the violence against one thing, why not against anything that they dislike? That's,
no comment, no comment, no comment. It was effective, wasn't it? No comment, it was effective, wasn't it? Yeah. Yeah, I got a taint of that attitude. I was very impressed by the rational, because I agreed with it entirely, Jancis Andrews of the North Shore Women's Centre, who deplored on another occasion the arson attacks as being against everything her group stands for. Okay, right. More with Webster on the porn caper after the break. Go ahead from Smithers, BC.
People raise their hands in horror at the thought of censorship, but things would never have got to the present depraved state, and women would have never been driven to the extremes they have, had control been exercised in the first place. It's a typical example of the camel putting his head in the master's tent. Oh, please, just my head, then my feet, then my body, and the first thing you know, he's driven the master out of the tent. That's what happens when these so-called soft porn is accepted. One caller said that pornography's been with us from the beginning of time. Perhaps so, but I don't think it's ever been called right before. This is the first generation that's accepted it as being right and allowed to take over the way it has. And I think possibly the first place that should be started is the women that take part in this soft porn business and girly magazines, centerfolds, strip shows, and all the rest. It's they that allow women to be shown such disrespect.
It's like one time, about 4 years ago, I went downtown to do a piece on what I regarded the social problem of hookers. And all of a sudden, I find myself in an establishment which is filled with the most obscene male dancers. And the place is jammed with women, you know. And all of a sudden, the city of Vancouver became a centerpiece for perfectly disgusting, repulsive male and female strippers all around the town. And we all accepted this as part of the new liberalism. And we all accepted amendments to the criminal code which make my hair stand on end. I agree with you, ma'am, and thank you for your call. From Victoria.
Good morning, Jack.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, I listen to you all the time, and I appreciate your good work and the way you make people laugh. And I'm all for the ladies against videotape, cruelty against women. And I'm glad to have a handful of women to stand up for me.
And you wouldn't be calling yourself...
And also, would you be interested to know why?
Yep.
Okay, I was married to a man who abused me and spent most of his time reading magazines with women in chains and tied up. Also, I had a 15-year-old niece found strangled in the woods. And also, I've seen women in difficulty. We've called the police late at night, and by the time the police got there, the girl was knocked out, pulled in the car, and the police cruised around the block and went home.
When was that?
That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, it sounds like an ordinary, concerned woman who isn't what you might call a fanatical woman's libber. Had her own personal experiences. There are sick people around, and there always will be sick people around. Go ahead, please.
Hi.
Yes, ma'am.
I think we've got a lot more sickies around than a lot of people realize. A rational woman or anybody could, to watch those terrible films and read that awful stuff that they have in those books, they've got to be sick. There's got to be something on their minds. And I think it arouses these sickies that are around, and I said they go out and they do all these horrible things. And another thing, that Olson that did that horrible stuff to all those children, when they cleaned out his apartment, that's all there was in the apartment, was boxes and boxes.
I remember that.
Yes.
I remember that.
And it just feeds these people's minds. And I think women have been degraded long enough. Now, mind you, I don't believe that going around burning places down, but by God, there's got to be something done about this. I wonder if petitions would help. I would be glad to put petitions out. Go to door, if that would help to get rid of this sick stuff.
Might do, ma'am. Might, and well said, too. Go ahead, please.
Good morning, Jack.
Morning.
Yeah. A few years ago, about 10 years ago, a clinical study was done in 3 cities and 6 major universities in the States. And they took tests showing films with the EEG and the EACG machines. And it turned around and it proved that what the people seen did affect them. And the wife and I are against it, eh? And the machines turn around and prove that what people do see, it does affect them to a point.
Well, I think one of the women's lib spokesmen put it very well when she said this morning that television, the media, advertising, radio. It can change fashions, it can change styles, it can change thoughts, it can change impressions. And if it can do it for whatever, it can certainly do it for pornography. But we are swamped, and it's been a trend throughout the entire Western world with this don't dare interfere with anybody else's freedom. There is a limit to people's freedom in a society. What do I sound like? I don't sound like a bleeding Nazi, do I? No, I hope not. Go ahead, please.
Morning, Jack.
Morning.
I would just like to follow up on the comment that was made by the last man. I didn't realize that he was on. But I wanted to tell you, in the United States, there was a case, mother sued CBS for, I think, $5 million.
Oh,
it seems that one of the kids in her neighborhood had attacked her daughter, and this youngster had seen the movie with Linda Blair. I don't remember the movie.
I remember that. And what happened to that lawsuit? I've lost track of it.
I'm not quite sure what happened, but the point I want to make is that it does influence people. As it was mentioned before, I firmly believe it, and young men seeing this type of thing believe that women want to be roughed up. Now, where does it stop? Where does it begin? And I really think that we have to get together and stop this before it goes any further.
I've seen some movies.
Far enough.
Thank you, ma'am. I've seen some movies on television which make me gag. More with Webster on this very important topic after the break. We haven't had that much except for myself on the outright condemnation of this mystery group, the Wimmins Fire Brigade, and I certainly wouldn't want to do anything that encouraged them in any way, shape, or form. When they burn down virtually a block of buildings and destroy other people's property and could have killed somebody, that's quite intolerable regardless of what the situation is. Now, where are we? Go ahead, please.
Yes, good morning.
Morning.
Yes, I'm afraid I disagree with you entirely, and I'm in full favor of what those women did, and I hope they do some more of it.
Why are you in favor of that?
Because I think it's time that we recognize that this society that is so comfortable for you is not very comfortable for anyone else, and we can wait and pray and petition and do whatever we have to do to follow the laws, and they're not going to change. And it's time to take direct action. I'm not a member of a women's group. I didn't even know this kind of thing was happening, but it stirred me up, and I believe that what they did was right, and if necessary, they should do it again and again and again until it becomes no longer profitable to do that kind of thing.
And go to jail when they're caught?
Absolutely, if that's what it takes.
Do you endorse the same kind of vigilante action in brutal sex murders? If the Crown doesn't hang them, that you go out and hang them?
Absolutely.
Oh.
I think maybe we had better get back to a vigilante type of society in order to change what's wrong with it.
And therein lies a real seed of danger in this kind of
Absolutely.
hysteria.
I believe it is a danger. It's a danger to a society that's become very comfortable.
You
Our rights and our laws and everything protect people in direct ratio to their income or their prestige or their ability to influence the power structure.
No, I
and
said-
it does absolutely nothing for the people who have none of those things, and that particularly is women.
And you don't mind a little bit of anarchy along the way?
I believe you're using the wrong term, because anarchy is an ideology in which can only be effective if all people embrace the same ideology. What you're talking about is chaos, and I believe that we need a little chaos to start to smarten up what's the leaders of this world.
And civil disobedience?
Civil disobedience, absolutely.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
We'll probably be on opposite sides of the barricades. From Squamish, go ahead, please. Squamish?
Yeah.
That's you.
Yes, I'm a member of the local women's center up here, and as such, I attended the NAC conference and met many of the women that you interviewed this morning. Since the firebombing, the executive of our group have talked about it a lot, though we have not made any public statements. But I think our general feeling was that we have to deplore the violence. Whether we're talking about rape or pornography or nuclear war, I see women's groups as trying to change the violent mentality of this society, and I can't back it. However, as an individual, I sort of recognize the possibility that the group responsible for the arson or individuals in that group meant to blacken the names of women's groups. And when I consider this, I don't blame them for, you know, sort of banding together to prevent such a scheme.
You're suggesting it's the old kind of barn...
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
You're suggesting it's the barn-burning syndrome. In other words, that some group that wants to destroy the credibility of Women's Lib has done this under a phony name and may well have been done by men.
Very possibly. Men, and there are women who are not with women's groups or against what women's groups are doing.
Thank you.
It could be women.
Good, I understand.
Possibility, and I don't blame the women who you interviewed for deciding that the only way to combat that was to band together and take one stand. I think as individuals, Janice was reported in the paper at one point of saying that she was totally against the violence, and that didn't come out from her on your program.
Oh, yes, it did. Janice Andrews made it perfectly clear this morning that she was totally against the violence.
Oh, well, I misinterpreted her then, and I'm glad to hear that.
No, quite sure. As a matter of fact, I'll look at the tape during the break and can refresh my memory.
Yes, well, I'm taping your program. Is that legal? Yeah.
I don't care. As long as you don't sell it. And there certainly ain't no pornography on this program.
Yes,
Thank you. Go ahead, please. Go ahead, please. Where are you?
Hello?
That's you, sir.
I'm not defending the video shops, but certainly do not agree with the fire bombings of these shops. And you notice how non-committal those ladies were.
A number of them are quite non-committal. No comment.
They all replied to you with no comment, no comment.
No, some of them did not endorse it. Quite a few, about 50%, did not endorse the violence.
Yeah, but
anyway, you damn the violence, do you?
Yeah, well,
Okay, sir, thank you. He had his television sound up, and that creates instant paranoia. Go ahead, please.
Good morning, Mr. Webster.
Morning.
If I could set Red Hot Video aside for a moment, I think the problem facing women is not one of pornography, but rather one of attitude. Women are not oppressed by pornography, but old-fashioned ideals of both men and women. I resent the anti-male attitude of the women's groups on the program, and I think that if they took a more cooperative stand, they would find many men willing to work with them. One point even in defense of pornography may be used constructively between a couple for mutual enjoyment. That way they can harmlessly experience fantasy rather than act it out. The action of the women's groups in firebombing Red Hot Video was total lack of respect for anybody else in this society.
Mm-hmm.
They found something offensive and took it into their own hands.
Thank you. One, go ahead, please.
Hello?
That's right.
Is that me?
Yeah.
I think the women have an excellent case in their fighting against pornography because it's violence. However, I don't think that the women's group can be singled out in a society that's as violent as ours, that condones the actions that happen in Lebanon and any other place in the world. Our whole society is built on and adores and loves violence of all forms, and women are only complaining about one form of it.
Yeah, well, in some more sophisticated parts of the world, we've managed to avoid the Lebanons and the Belfasts, thank God, so far.
Well, we're upset now because it's hitting home.
I suppose so. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, I don't agree with the method about the burning and everything, because, like you say, someone's life could have been taken.
Sure, it's a criminal act.
Maybe taking it seriously are the police now, but that man saying that women blowing up or burning buildings will show a bad example to young people what to do when they want something. What about the children taking a peek at the parents' home video movie, or worse yet, growing up with it? You know, children act out shows and copy things. I'm a woman in my late 20s. This may sound ridiculous to you, Jack, but do I have anything to fear from a 5-year-old who will one day be a man and who grew up on this stuff? You got to look at it that way, too.
Oh, I agree with you. I can imagine that there are isolated cases where children are brought up on this kind of stuff. I mean, when you've got the totally permissive society and a breakdown of the family unit in many ways, these kind of things fester and grow.
That's right, and if they think this is second nature, I'm really worried for women in the future.
Yeah, I'm all in favor of the appropriate laws, under the appropriate regulations or laws, being enforced without any shilly-shallying, wishy-washy, messing about the damn thing.
Exactly.
And I think the lesson to be learned by municipal councils now is that on license applications, they can perfectly properly refuse them and force the operator to go to court.
Exactly.
To see if the refusal is unjustified.
Well, like the old saying is, don't take them onto your own hands, take them to court.
And this business of going to bring in a new piece of legislation to put every videotape under censorship, that won't really help.
No, no.
Okay, much obliged. You want a break? Shall I do more of this or not? I can't make up my mind. Yeah, one more, after the break.